Hi guys. So this is the first video of my second project, and the first one, if you haven't watched it, is about implementing Space Invaders in Scratch. And on this one, I'm gonna implement a different game in a different engine. So just a few things that I changed throughout the first series, because when I introduced the first series, I told you guys that my idea was to implement Space Invaders in different engines. I mean, not only in Scratch, but I was going to implement Space Invaders in Scratch, in Stencil, in Unity, in Unreal, you name it. But then I realized that it was not a very good idea, to keep implementing Space Invaders in all these engines. I mean, first of all, it would be boring. I mean, after the first time that I implemented Space Invader, I don't want to be repeating that throughout, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 engines. And even for you guys, I think it's more interesting to have different games in different engines, because if you are going to use these videos or follow these videos to create your own projects and create your own lesson plans and everything, I think it's more useful for you guys to have different games and different engines, so that even then you can just combine and make one of the games that I mean the current the game that I'm going to implement now, you can take it and implement it on Scratch and just like mix and match all the games in the engines. So that's the main change that I made to this project, or to this idea that I had. So, and now what I'm going to do is, or the game that I selected for this second series of videos is Frogger. So this is the game that I selected, and I had a lot of games. I was like compiling a list of all the games that I could implement. You can see a lot of them right here, and it's not easy to select a game. I can tell you guys that, because you have games that seem really simple. I mean, all the games that even the games that look really simple are not that easy when you start to implement it, and they take some time and some effort to implement it. And some other games, maybe they are too complex to be implementing them on this initial engine that I'm using. So this was the entire list of games that I was um, noting while I was recording the first one, and I ended up selecting the Frogger. It was a game that I played a lot when I was a kid, and I really liked this game. It seems quite simple. I mean, a little bit more difficult to, or more complex to implement than Space Invaders, but less complex than some other games that I have here. And I think it's a cool game overall. So this was the game that I selected, is Frogger, and I'm not going to go into the game on this video. I'm going to make a separate video about deconstructing the game mechanics and the rules and everything. So that will be the next video. So this is just for you guys to know. So I'm going to implement Frogger, and the engine that I selected is Stencil. Why did I select Stencil? Because from all the list of engines that I had, let me see. So I had Scratch, and after Scratch, I had GameFruit. At least I had considered to use GameFruit, but I tried to use it. And why did I want to use GameFruit? Because GameFruit looked really similar to Scratch in almost everything. Like the design, the interface was really simple, and but had a little bit more things that Scratch doesn't have, like for example the functions, which is something that I think it's missing in Scratch, and it's something really important to understand when you are learning how to program. I can remember that the first time, or during the first time when I was learning how to program, I couldn't get my head around functions. I mean that everyone told me, okay, functions is something that you call and they return a value, and I was like, okay, but how do you call a function, and where do they return a value, or how do they return a value, and what's that value? I couldn't get my head around this, wrap my hand around this. So I think it's a really important concept to also understand from the very beginning. And I was really surprised, because GameFruit, despite having this childish look like Scratch, it had functions and some other concepts that Scratch doesn't have, like physics and some other things like that. But yesterday I started just playing around with the GameFruit and trying to implement Frogger, and I encountered several problems. I mean, the user interface doesn't work that well. it's really cumbersome, like you try to drag stuff and it doesn't work. Then I was using like the sprites and to design the level, and if I want to replace one of the sprites, I don't have an easy way to do it. You have layers, but the layers also, the control of the layers, you cannot duplicate things, you cannot like select a bunch of things and copy paste. I mean, it was really cumbersome to be honest. So I ended up like abandoning this engine, at least for now. And my other consideration, at least from what some of you guys told me when I asked for feedback about the next engine, some of you guys told me about Game Maker, and I consider Game Maker, but then I went to look how it works, and it is one of the engines that already has code, so it's more advanced in the way I see it, and also the interface, I mean the drag and drop interface for adding blocks of code, it's quite different from Scratch. So I'm trying to create or to use engines like with how you call it, incremental complexity. So I don't want like jump from the Scratch interface to this one because it looks a lot more complex than the other one. So I'm gonna leave Game Maker to the next series probably. I'm not sure if it's right the next one or the other one after that, but I'm gonna leave it for later. And I ended up selecting Stencil. And basically because it looks really simple. Let me show you. Okay, it looks really simple. I mean, the interface is a little bit more complex than Scratch, of course. But the code, let me show you behaviors. Sorry, because I'm trying to, not here. Where is the code? Scene behavior. I mean, code is here. Okay, I don't know how to create code yet, so I'm just gonna show it here. Okay, yeah, the interface to add code is really similar to Scratch, so I think this is the best choice to go from the first series of videos. And this is it. So I selected Frogger, I selected the stencil, and another thing that I'm going to do different from the first series is that on the first series I already knew how to work with Scratch, so it was not the first time that I was working with it. And even before starting to record the videos, I implemented the whole game and then went back to the beginning and started implementing again from scratch and record the whole process. This time I'm going to try a different thing. So I never use stencil, as you just saw, because I don't even know how to add a script. So I never used stencil. It is the first time. The first time I used stencil, it was yesterday. And so far, what I was able to do was to create a scene. Not the background, sorry. Was to create a scene, yes. And to draw the background of the game and to add my player. So I was already able to do this. I'm going to record a video with these first initial steps. And like I was saying, what I'm going to do different is that I'm going to start learning how to work with stencil and recording at the same time. I mean, of course, I will always implement the stuff first and only record after. It's not going to be like real time. I'm not going to be learning in front of you guys because that's really boring. But in a way, I think it has the advantage of me remembering the first mistakes that I made or the first assumptions that I made when I was learning how to work with the program, and I can talk about that in the videos. And I think it's really important not only to know, okay, this is the right way to do it, but also to tell you guys, okay, I had this assumption, or at least I assumed this would work this way, and it doesn't work this way, and why it doesn't work, and why this is the best solution. I think this is the best way to learn how to work with the software. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And this is it. I mean, the next video, the next video is about deconstructing Frogger. So just like I did with the last series, this is the overview of the project. The next video, we are going to deconstruct the game, understand how the game works, and then we are going to start working with the game engine. So that's it. Thank you guys.